And for everybody out there, this is just a general budget. Um, Major line items. Underneath of everything that's on that budget sheet is going to be a subcategory of what you need as far as sticks of rebar, how many yards of concrete, how much yardage of compacted base fill material you will need in order to fill in where your slab would be or your foundation. And so this is just a general overview to get you started. Some of those items can be line items. I think at the very beginning of that, though, on the top of that sheet is your architectural design and your architect or your builder. Those can be big line items, can't they, Ray?
And then, can everybody see what I've got up here?
This is your
Can
budget. That's
yeah,
different than the one that okay, so we have our own residential project budget that we're going to be working with, but Ray has his actual budget. So that's going
yeah,
to
and
be
Which is great. Which is great for everybody out there because to see a couple of different ones and then you can fine tune it for your project.
yeah, and then now I will say that one of the key things is to tune your budget the way your brain works. I am not a spreadsheet person, but this is a spreadsheet that I created, and it's very simple. And then this is a cover page, and then if and let me go and everything from left to right at the bottom. You see pre-construction, general, foundation. It goes from left to right chronologically at the bottom so that I can go along here and then I can also, I designed this to be a working document that I can use during the project as well to know if I'm on track or going over and things like that. And so I left some of the values in from this other project, and you can see how we total out. And then I use this in here, and I took a lot of the other numbers out. But the concept is there's a cover page, pre-construction. These are, some of your basic lot issues. And then, like Tim was saying, there's our architect, there's our engineering, permitting, et cetera, et cetera. That totals out here. And then what I did is anytime there's a total, it automatically carries to the front right here. And then that goes in, and then I can watch my budget grow or shrink. So going from left to right, pre-construction, I left those in. That's what it was for the project in San Antonio. Then there's general. These are all of the general things that can add up and kill you, like, just a dumpster, the portable toilet, those things that you don't think of all the time that are there. And then I just go on in through. This is an example of how I itemized my foundation. We did a pier and beam foundation, labor materials. I did include some hempcrete into the foundation, into the subfloor, so that I included it here. Some of these are simple, one or two line items. But now, if you go all the way to the end, here, at the end of my notes. And so in my notes tab, that's where I keep all of the, I talked to Joe Bob, he could do it for 10,000. I talked to Sally Mae and she could do it for 9,000. Decided, anything that I've got there is where I keep all that clutter. But it's organized clutter. But over here, I just have the numbers, just the facts, ma'am. And then here is what I did on the Hempcrete. And then so we've got, however you're buying it, if it's a 44-pound bag and let's say I've got 504 cubic feet, and then I'm going to get 6 feet or 6 cubic feet per bag. How many bags do I need? And then the price per bag, and then it'll carry over. And then I do know enough about Excel to put in some math equations and stuff like that and have them automatically carry down. And so that's how you'll do your takeoffs and how that works. Now, moving on forward, again, just in the process of left to right, on what all your project goes. That way you can use your budget as a management tool. That's one thing that worked for me, and then that may not be for everybody. But the main thing that's the most difficult about all of this, that's the most unfamiliar, is doing your takeoffs. And so I'll just do one example, and then I've got my other calculator pulled up here. And then so 504 cubic feet for the floor divided by 6 cubic feet per batch. That's 84 batches. And so if I go in here and I type 84, and then my price per bag, let's say it's a 44-pound bag times 60 cents a bag, and that's $26. I'll just put 27. And then so that's how much that, and you see how it carried all the way on down, the materials total and the hempcrete total. And then I did separate out the walls and the roof. So if you're evaluating a slab versus a pier and beam, then that's handled separate. I budgeted that separately. But that's an example about taking your takeoff, and then I got the cubic footage by doing the surface area times the thickness. That's cubic feet. I got cubic feet divided by how many, an average of 6 cubic feet per batch, and that's utilizing a 44-pound bag and a bag of binder, and then I can price in my binder and all that separate. Now, I did end up buying a tractor trailer load or two of super sacks, and so I translated this into per pound, and then did it that way. But then, math multiplies out per pound the same as per bag. And just so it's like, how are you going to get this to your job site? And then that's how that is. So that's a satellite view of it, and an example of a budget, and an example of a total project that's nearing completion. And then again, your big things are your price per cubic foot installed, and then on the plaster, your price per square foot installed. And then we got to where we're doing this in-house, and it came in for less than that, so we're happy with that. So I'll close this back out and not steal too much thunder from Tim and let you jump in there, and then where we can really get people's questions on how this makes sense and doesn't make sense.
Ray, that was great. Very detailed, which is awesome. And you were absolutely correct with it all depends on how you want to break down your project. This little, what I'm going to talk about in the photos is geared more towards workshops and financing around that level. So I will do this. This is a group of workers that we had on our project, on the Hondo project. And at the end of, every time we had people coming in and people leaving, and we did some classes, but this is just one group of them. And so when it gets down to workshops and financing, one of the biggest things with financing I find with doing Hempcrete or any cast in place monolithic system is the crew and the crew efficiency and the site efficiency is very, very important. And sometimes it is very hard to orchestrate. This group worked rather well together, so we're going to go through some photos here of this project. One other thing with crew and doing workshops is trying to find housing and food, water, shelter. Here we've got shelter. This is an outdoor kitchen that we set up. This is it at night. And every now and then you get a couple crew that are feeling a little frisky, and they made homemade noodles from scratch, Fisher and Empress, in our little worker camp. It was quite amazing, actually. And then you can also step it up. I would recommend, if you're going to go down the direction of doing workshops on your projects, that this is the direction that you go, as far as like a crew space to get out of the elements and to create more of a community. This is a 20-foot yurt that we did through the company, and we made it into our kitchen space. And this is what you can create for temporary housing. This building was here for not even 12 months. We took it down, put it on a pallet, and then it's ready to go to our next project. Super simple. You're looking at 2 people, maybe 4 hours a morning to create that whole space. So very low upfront cost to create a nice kitchen space. We also had a dining room space in there, and a couch I brought down. We had 2 air conditioning units in it because it is Texas. And we brought heaters in there during the winter. So we had a space to get out of the elements. Getting your crew and workshop people out of the elements can be very important. So be very leery of that if you're planning on running a workshop to try to get work done. Try to create a safe space for them, and you can have, situations like this. The gentleman sitting at the table that's turning his head, this gentleman right here, he's the owner of that project, and some of his friends that were working on the project and some of our crew. So you can create a nice space. And also, if you like to cook on Dutch ovens, those are 4 deep dish pizzas that we were cooking on Dutch ovens. And you can make a lot of food for a lot of people with just charcoal and Dutch ovens. And so it can be fairly remote. But you also want to make sure that you got showers for them. But this is also, since we were talking about fire burn test last time, Ray, I wanted to show this video or this picture of this windbreak wall that we did with hempcrete and glass bottles. And this is after it had burned for probably 3 days. And this is our fire pit. And so it's quite amazing to see that it can actually be melting glass, and exposed glass for 72 hours. And this is the damage that has taken place on that wall. Quite amazing. It's a 10-inch wall. It took us 2 weeks to burn through it. Getting back to financing and efficiency on a project, this is our Hempcrete mixing station on that Hondo project. We have a mix and go that goes on the front of our skid steer. We have a shade structure for the mixer. We have our lime right there in a pallet. We have our Hempcrete bags that we're going to use that day, turned, elevated on side, so it's easy for us to fill our big containers that we have for it. And we have more Hempcrete bags ready to go if we need more. I cannot emphasize the importance of having a nice, clean mixing station. Well organized, you can save thousands of dollars on a project compared to something that's disorganized. This is the entrance to that breezeway. This is a really great photo. Can you see the Hempcrete wall on the one side of the breezeway, and us getting ready to do our slip forms on the other side. And also in the foreground there, you see our stand that we dump our Hempcrete mix on. You will see that in a couple more slides coming down. All around financing and efficiency on the job site. I mean, weeks out of a project. This is a shot from the other side of that breezeway. The way we do our slip forms and our framing system, you can see is fairly well minimized. Gets into the financing aspect of it. In our angle bracing, those slip forms there are only 16 inches high and they have a support on them. We move them up inside and outside, so you can see we can communicate really easy from one side of the wall to the next. Down at the end of the breezeway, we've got the mix and go and our skid steer dumping onto that platform. Somebody pulling it out of the machine if it needs to be cleaned a little bit. And there's little totes right in front of it, so it goes right to them. When you're moving slip forms, using a teamwork approach, teamwork makes the dream work, so that everybody's being safe. I found when they're 16 inches instead of 24 inches, they're a lot lighter and easier for everybody on the job site of all different strengths to be able to help move those forms around. Again, this is another picture of that breezeway with us have finished the guest wing side of the building and getting ready to take on and have already started to attack the master suite living room space of it. You can see the back side of our platform that we dump our hempcrete onto. So it's very easy for us to put the forks on our skid steer, grab that thing, move it to wherever we need to. And it's usually right next to the scaffolding. This is the interior of the building when they're doing it and us moving slip forms. Another financing efficiency aspect is if you can see right here by this window and this window buck, we've got some solid framing down here to support our windowsill. This framing piece here and the side piece are only there to act as a form or a mold. And if you come to the top of it, the top section is attached up to the ceiling rafters, but it's not attached. So this piece of plywood and this little piece of 2x4, we're going to take out after we get done doing the infill, and we're already going to have our roll created for our window on the inside. So we don't have to come in and cut anything back. We've got our support for our wood, for our header already in there for whatever header system we want to go to finish it out so we don't have to plaster the top of the window. And we've already got something structural set in place to support our windowsill. So it's not going to move around, and it's going to be a nice windowsill that people can sit on. You can put a plan on, anything you want to do. This is a good photo in the corner. You can see Danny here. She's standing on top of that little ledger board that we use to lock our forms in and together. It gives a little footstep, ease of accessibility sometimes. Underneath her foot, you'll see that they're cut at like a 30-degree angle off of the corner, so they're actually supporting all the way into the corner there. And you can see how we've attached it over on this side to that rough 2x that's added into our formwork that will literally come out, but we use it as an anchor for our slip form as we're going. This slip form here, all of these slip forms, actually, they only have one screw at the top here and one screw at the top on the corner, and they lock in on the bottom. So to move a form, you're only taking 2 screws out at a time instead of 4 or 5 or 6 or 8 or 10. This is a good example of them dumping the material. The herd right here, it goes into a little tote, and she takes a step and a half, and it goes right here to Patrick Webb. And you can see him dumping it into this formwork to tamp it into place. Minimizing the distance that we have to move herd. She's literally got to pick it up from here, take 2 steps and give it to Patrick there, and he lifts it and puts it up. Instead of taking it to the ground or into a wheelbarrow, moving it, putting it in a container, moving it up. So those are the things that really, when it gets down to it, as far as financing goes, can take weeks off of your budget. Or add weeks or months to your budget. And that's the scary part. You don't want to add to it. Here's how we got everything cleaned up at the end of the day for work. We got all our totes cleaned out. We've taken some forms off. We moved some forms over. We got our station set up because we're going to take on this and then we're going to move it and come over here. So fairly straightforward. Here's a hempcrete wall going up, and I wanted to show you how we have the forms on the side. So you can see how that 2x4 goes in and it literally locks it into place. On this system, we used our 2x4s attached to 2x10s for our interior walls. So it made a channel to attach that material into for the hempcrete. Worked out really great. Here's another example of that modified post and beam system with a post deck at the corners. There is the LVL on top. And so therefore that carries your header weight that you would normally in conventional building carry down over top of a window. And so you can get rid of that big fat header above the window and go to something simple like a simple 2x4. It works really great. And fairly easy to get through code because it's a pretty solid post pack system on all the corners and at the windows and doors. And it is not just one LVL up there, Ray. There are two LVLs that are screwed and nailed together. They're 1 7/8 by 11 7/8. So they're not small, you know, for sure. Here's how we cut channels into our system. So we don't do any electric or plumbing in our wall system. We come back and cut that afterwards. Comes out really easy. We collect that material and then we'll add our scratch coat lime plaster material and put it over top of that as a patch. Do a coat of plaster over top of it. Do a finished coat of plaster and you're done. Off to the right-hand side, you can see the formwork still in place that we haven't pulled on that window corner. So you can see now, you saw that side of that window before we put Hempcrete slip-form panel off. You can see that same side panel still in place. And we do those windows with a 2x4 on the middle and a 2x6 on the outside towards the Hempcrete wall, basically a 2x4 queen and a 2x6 king. And that 2x6 gives us a spot to attach our formwork to instead of just doing two 2x4s as a post for a window. Works really slick. Then at the very top, let me go back here one. At the very top here, you can see we brought Hempcrete up here to the top, but we haven't filled it up to the top of the rafter. And so what we decided to do at that top 12 inches, 16 inches is we went outside and made some blocks that were the same size to slide up in between that 2 foot on center engineered hip truss system. And then we just masonried those blocks into that space. And so we avoided having to beat your head up all the time and trying to get that Hempcrete up and over that little top spot that you just have a couple of inches to get into. Again, you can see our machine, Fury. We are at the crossroads off of the Brad Pitt movie. It is the Queen of Fury. And our mixing co we call Mud Daddy. And the Queen of Fury works Mud Daddy all day long, which is great. He loves it. She doesn't mind it. And it's a great machine to have around. And then at the end of the day, with all of that, you can end up with a building like this. We were able to use the local posts on site, which are really beautiful, but they are more work. You know, so just because in your financing package, you're like, oh, great, we're going to use the wood for a post and they're going to look beautiful and it's going to not cost us anything. Well, those are $400 posts by the time you get your labor worked into it and everything like that. They are not cheap. And it becomes a beautiful building. Any questions out there?